Hi everyone, welcome to today's video. My name's Stephanie and today I have a very late review for Holo Taco's Haute Garbage collection. I'm sure many of you know these already came out for their April Fool's Day launch this year, where last year they released the shade Born Ugly and this year they brought it back along with 3 more shades. So I will share some more of my thoughts for these at the end of the video after comparisons. For now, let me just show you the swatches. The first polish we have is Dirty Martini, which is described as a linear crushed holographic hybrid formula in a muted olive shade. This had a great formula where it is very full coverage, super pigmented, but not thick at all. I feel like some people have said that Holo Taco's linear holos are a little too thick, but this one felt really smooth to apply. And while it is described as a hybrid formula, having the crushed holo along with the linear, it kind of just read as a very weakened linear to me personally, which I know some people might attribute that to the crushed holo aspect, since a crushed holo is more subtle compared to a linear. But I don't know, I also just wasn't really getting crushed holo from this at all. So either way, I still really love this one and would say it's one of my favorites from the lineup. I just love a muted olive kind of color, even though I admittedly really hate dirty martinis. I don't know if I just had a bad one or if I had one when I was too young and my palate was unrefined or something, but yeah, really not a fan of the drink, but love this color. The next polish is called Sparkly Shit, and this one is a deep olive green holographic glitter formula in a green-brown jelly base. And this is another one that I really loved. I just love the shade of olive green. I don't think it's as brown leaning as the last shade, for example. I mean, it's also not as muted as the last one, but to me, this at least reads a little more in the yellow-green family, which isn't usually my favorite, but I feel like it is that perfect shade of olive, and it's also just so incredibly sparkly. I love this holographic glitter formula from Holo Taco, so it was just a really cool color combination to see this formula in. It's a shame I didn't have direct sunlight for my full hand swatches, but you still could see the holographic rainbow twinkle, and naturally, since this is a chunky glitter formula, I would recommend a peel off base coat as well as a glitter smoothing top coat. Next we have Born Ugly, which originally came out last year for April Fool's, so this is a re-releasing kind of shade, but it's described as a drab brown-green cream. And this is a flawless one-coater, at least it is for me. I think maybe if you do thinner coats, you might need two, but I just left it at the one, mainly because I was on a little bit of a time crunch, but I also just loved how it looked and didn't think the color changed that much doing a second coat. Even though this is inspired by the most unattractive color to ever exist, it's actually really pretty. I feel like it's kind of this camo army green, even though I am very anti-military. It's just a nice color. And rounding out the quad is No Smoking, which is described as a smoky brown-green base with a burnt amber to golden green multichrome magnetic shimmer. This had a pretty nice formula where it is decently pigmented. As you can see on the first coat, it does have a good amount of color to it, but it's slightly jelly leaning and not the most even coverage. So I did have some unevenness, some light patchy spots here and there, but since it is so dark, I feel like they were mostly covered up by the second coat. Depending on the lighting, I could see a tiny bald spot near the center tip of my nail, but it just didn't feel like a third coat was necessary. And yeah, I would say this is the pruggliest one for me, where it kind of reminds me of like sewage water or something. So I don't love the color, but I think it does work for the collection. And again, it has a really nice formula too that magnetizes super easily. Dirry, as you saw in the cat eye effect. Here I'm doing the velvet effect using the Holo Taco horseshoe magnet, and I'm just applying the 2 coats here. And because of that jelly leaning base, I feel like it gives it such a glassy, gemmy kind of look to it, where it's not quite like a fine particle magnetic, but almost. And if you watched my Mooncat review video, you saw me do this glass bead effect using the box that the polishes come in, so I wanted to see if I could do it with the Holo Taco cartons since it has a round cutout in the front. So I cut off the biggest flap from the bottom of the box, then painted on my 2 coats of the polish, put the box over my finger, and then took my horseshoe magnet to see if I could spin it over the circle, but it unfortunately didn't work. The Holo Taco box is just too narrow and it just kept sliding off on either side, so this was a bit of a nail fail. Like, you kind of see an effect going on at least, but it's not as crisp as if you do the traditional glass bead spinner tool. Though, to be fair, this is immediately after magnetizing, but as I'm sure you know, if you aren't magnetizing for too long, which you'll see in my full hand swatch on my pointer finger, the glass bead does disperse and kind of looks like a vertical velvet effect in a way, which personally I do like and prefer more than a tiny bead on the nail, but to each their own. And for the rest of the nails, I have the velvet effect on my middle finger, the cat eye effect on my ring, and unmagnetized on my pinky. And here hopefully you can see that shift to a more yellowy green, almost chartreuse shimmer color in extreme lighting. And just in case I didn't mention it, this is 2 coats with top coat. And here is my full hand swatch collage of the Haute Garbage collection. I definitely prefer the more brown leaning greens like Dirty Martini and Born Ugly, but I still really love sparkly shit. Unfortunately, no smoking is my least favorite. Moving on to comparisons, we're starting with Dirty Martini, and I wanted to first quickly show this next to Lost in the Woods, which is a deep pine green linear holo, and you can see just how much stronger the linear flare is. For closer colors, I thought of Mooncat's Monster Under Your Head, which I believe they described as an olive green linear holo, but in the bottle, I thought it actually pulled a little closer to Mooncat's Firewall, which is a shimmer, not holo at all, but it just kind of has that sort of same tone of this muted olive color. Maybe Firewall is a little bit more yellow leaning, while Monster Under Your Head is that more olive army green. So neither of these are exact dupes, but they're definitely similar vibes. The only other shade I thought was somewhat close to Dirty Martini was Olive Ave's Emerald, which is not an emerald green by any means. It really is like an olive color, and in this dainty, hollow, scattered kind of formula too, but it's a much deeper and more vibrant shade of green. Definitely very mossy compared to the muted olivey gray of Dirty Martini. The closest shade that I've seen recommended as a dupe to Dirty Martini is ILNP's Treetop, which sadly has just been retired, but it is an olive green linear holo, and depending on the swatch photos, it can look a little bit more green and less yellow. So I thought another ILNP shade that kind of reminded me of the color was Alexander. It is a totally different finish though, being a jelly holo flaky, but when it comes to that really muted grayed out green shade, I feel like it's kind of close, or they're at least distant cousins. And the only other shade I thought was similar to Dirty Martini, but I don't have any more unfortunately, is Apocalypse's When You're Lost in the Darkness, which is a thermal, but in the cold state, I remember it having this really muted gray-green kind of color, so this could be another alternative. Next for sparkly shit, I thought the closest Holo Taco shades were Everything is Pine, mainly for the chunky glitter formula, but color-wise, I pulled out Far From the Tree, which I remembered being more olive than it's looking here. It's more of like a foresty green, so definitely not dupes. For closer comparisons, I immediately thought of ILNP's Countryside and Cracked Polishes on Repeat, both of which are these olive green jelly bases filled with holographic sparkle, but ILNP is this micro flake finish, while Cracked is a micro glitter, so they are slightly different in that way. The holo glitter in Holo Taco is much larger, but there is a slight difference in the bases, specifically for ILNP, where that one is the most brown leaning, so between these, I would say Cracked is the closest, but I figured I could still try to recreate Sparkly Shit by layering Rainbow Snow in a jelly sandwich. So I did 2 coats of each base color, 1 coat of Rainbow Snow, followed by 1 more coat of the polish. And I don't know if it's just me, but when I did the jelly sandwiches, I thought ILNP's combination looked a little bit closer, color-wise at least. The only other olivey green micro glitter I have is Apocalypse's The Last of Them, which kind of has a similar vibe, but not really a dupe by any means. The base isn't as dark as Holo Taco, and it also just has a couple of different colored micro glitters in here as well. So I thought I could just do a layer of ILNP's Countryside over the Apocalypse to deepen the color, and I feel like it is kind of close, but it's just missing those larger chunky glitters. And even though I knew this wasn't going to be a dupe, I still wanted to show Olive Ave's Emerald next to Sparkly Shit, since I thought the deeper green kind of color would be closer than it was to Dirty Martini. And I would say it kind of is. Maybe Emerald is a little bit more brown leaning. It's kind of hard to tell. So again, I tried another recreation attempt using a jelly sandwich method with Rainbow Snow, but since Emerald isn't a jelly base, it kind of covered up Rainbow Snow more than I wanted it to. Then for Born Ugly, I think the closest greens that Holo Taco has are Headhunter and Not Pressed. Headhunter being a darker green but more foresty in color, while Not Pressed is olive but much lighter, so definitely not dupes. The closest greens that I have, I think, are ILNP's Treetop and Olive Ave's Olive, which are both olivey green creams. In the bottle alone, it looks like ILNP is the closest to being a dupe, but it is actually a bit lighter. So on the nail, it kind of looks like Olive is a closer match, but there is a subtle difference where it's just more olivey with a yellow undertone, while Born Ugly has a noticeable brownish gray undertone. Finally, for no smoking, I knew I had to see this next to Mooncat's Kelp Kingdom, which is another prugly magnetic that has this seaweed green base with this amber copper kind of shimmer. Mooncat does also have a silver reflective glitter in here, but aside from that, the colors are somewhat close, but they're not close enough to be dupes, unfortunately. Seeing them unmagnetized, you can see that Mooncat is a little bit more pale in its color, almost like the pastel version, but then once you magnetize them, you can see the difference in the base colors too. The only other shades in my collection that I thought were kind of close to no smoking, but aren't exact dupes because they're not magnetics, were Fauve's The Kiss and Tethered. I think the base of The Kiss is the closest, being that slightly darker, murky, greenish brown color, but it has a strong pink shimmer, while Tethered is much lighter in its base with a more fiery red-orange shimmer. And lastly, I wanted to at least include a photo comparison of Bee's Knees Lacquer. I choose the Bear because I think this is the closest to a potential dupe, but not exactly. Maybe the base in Bee's Knees is a little bit more green, but the shimmer is also a little bit more fiery, almost more similar to Fauve's Tethered, but pretty close otherwise. So that wraps up my swatches and comparisons of Holo Taco's Haute Garbage collection. As always, I would love to know what you think of this release, and let me know if you already grabbed them or if you did miss out on Sparkly Shit, because unfortunately that one is sold out, which I feel like is the perfect segue to get me into, my main complaint about these. It's not even that they are limited edition, because I do understand like the nature of coming out with those kinds of releases from time to time, but it's more specifically the fact that, to me at least, I feel like Holo Taco is starting to slowly creep back into that like FOMO aspect that was really prevalent with the brand, like especially when they first started out, because in the beginning they would sell out right away, people would miss out, and it just sucked all around. And I feel like it took them a while to get better at just having enough stock and inventory for their limited collections, where people didn't have to like rush, and buy things like right when the shop opens or that weekend for that matter. Because I think it was just 2 years ago, the Royalty collection that came out in April didn't start selling out until like August. So that's months that these limited edition polishes were still available to purchase. And I'm pretty sure they did the same with other LE releases throughout the year, that they just like were in stock for like months longer than usual. And it just did a really good job at quelling the FOMO for everybody. And that's, you know, obviously to the benefit of the consumer, right? I get that maybe on the back end for the brand, it's not the best to have all of these like, you know, stock of these limited edition polishes that they're hoping to sell out soon, especially because they're coming out with these like monthly collections that take up space. But my point is that, you know, for a while they did a good job at like quelling the FOMO, right? Where people couldn't really argue anymore that Holo Taco participates in like, you know, these FOMO releases and whatnot, because their polishes were lasting for months, which I think is really fair. But then last year with their Bon Voyage collection, they didn't even sell out. They pulled the collection from the website after like 3 weeks. It wasn't even a full month that they were around before people couldn't buy them anymore. And that just always left a bad taste in my mouth because they had never done that before. I get that they did bring them back for the vault in December, which is what they usually do with like, you know, the previous LE releases throughout the year, but that just was weird, you know, like especially to not even sell out, just pulling it from the website. I didn't love that. And so now to see like, you know, their April Fool's release, like one of the polishes is already sold out. I'm just like, is there an issue where they're like, because I don't know, maybe they didn't buy enough or like have enough stock of sparkly shit compared to the others, because obviously the others are still in stock. But I'm still just like really surprised that it's already sold out when they were doing such a good job at having, you know, their limited polishes lasting for a couple of months. Like maybe it's unfair to expect these shades to last until August again, but I feel like it should be fair to maybe have them be around like a seasonal polish, for example, where you have like a month or two, like guaranteed before it starts like selling out. So yeah, ultimately it just is a pattern that I hope does not continue. Like I really hope the rest of the shades, because they are still available, at least as of recording this, and even the royalty release, I hope that they can last for a couple more months, but it would really be a bummer to see either they start selling out right away or that they are like pulled from the website, like what happened with Bon Voyage. It also really sucks because I feel like this is coming off so negative, and that just pains me because I actually really loved this collection. Like I know that might be surprising. I feel like I have a reputation as a Prugly hater. I don't think that's entirely true. I mean, there are still some Pruglies that I'm like, oh my god, that is hideous, but I feel like there are a lot that I've like come around to, and generally I feel like even when Holo Taco is like trying to do something Prugly, they make them so pretty and like they're not even Prugly to begin with. So yeah, I actually really love these. I enjoyed them so much more than the royalty release, which might be surprising too, but they were just so lovely to see, especially from Holo Taco, and it just kind of sucks that, you know, one of them is already sold out. Maybe there is some like misdirected anger there too, because I only just got these in the mail for PR, and it probably would have been better if I had just bought them myself, because I would have gotten them like the next day probably, and I wouldn't have felt so bad at sharing a review where you can't even get everything anymore. So hopefully if there is anybody like upset that my review is up so late, they understand it's not my fault that Holo Taco sent these so late. But yeah, overall, I love the polishes, you know, hate that they're already starting to sell out. I hope the other ones last for a bit longer, especially if you are interested in getting them, but you just like can't for whatever reason. But if anything, hopefully my comparisons were also helpful for these, because even though there weren't maybe dead on dupes, there were a lot of like really similar vibes. So yeah, just let me know what you think down below so we can chat about it. But thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.